everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Standing in Our Truth. We're at episode number 8, and we're just so excited to be here, as always, our favorite time of the week. Rich and I already did a deep dive, sort of personal therapy session right before we started. And again, we're just like, why didn't we record it? Right? Like, why didn't we record it? We went into astrology and just did our little check-in and kind of grounded together, which is what we do a lot, and which is why I call you like one of my best friends, because you really help right size things for me and ground me. And so I'm just incredibly grateful to be back for another episode. Today we are talking about something that both of us have like really struggled with, and also our families and friends have made comments about it, partners, everyone. And so we just wanted to bring it to the forefront of the conversation today because it's, again, personally affecting us. And we want to bring you the truth and sort of our authenticity in what's going on in our lives in the current moment. And so today we're talking about body image, self-image, how we portray to society, the societal norms that we get caught up in, the validation that we sometimes seek from the external world on our looks. And a lot of that is such a pertinent issue right now because you and I have talked about how we show up on this podcast, right? Like we laugh and we joke all the time that when we started this, we wanted to be perfect. Like we stopped because lipstick was off. We stopped because like hair pieces were off. And so today, as I was getting ready, and this is the serendipitous part of this whole journey with Richa, is that as I was getting ready, I was like, I started like wiping off makeup. I wanted to just come off more natural today and just be ourselves. I started to think a lot, at 36 weeks pregnant, like, how do I want to show up for my daughter? And so Richa was thinking the exact same thing. She came up and she's showing up natural. And we're just like, we want to be as authentic and real as possible. And so take it away, sister, on your take on body image. We like to keep these episodes short so that you can listen to it whenever you have time, and we love your feedback. But with that, what is your take on this body image, this self-portrayal of ourselves in front of the world and to our families and friends?
Yes, thanks, sis. I love that you touched a little bit about how before this episode recording, we literally had the same thought about how we should show up. Should we show up differently today? Should we kind of abide by what's in right now? And so, yes, we were talking about our makeup and like the no makeup that's in, and how if you're putting on too much, there's judgment around that. And if we're expected to wear it but look like we're not wearing it. And so I think today's going to be a lot more than body image. It's definitely going to be on our thoughts and perceptions and attitudes and feelings around our external validation. And that's going to be, people talk about weight a lot and physical appearance, but also sometimes there's judgment around showing up as too much. That line, like, have I've been said like, oh, that's a bit much, or when you speak your mind too much. So there's different angles I thought about today when I was like, why are there so many expectations around the way we present to the world? And I've struggled with it personally. We've dived into different angles of this on previous podcast episodes, but the whole piece of like trying to control the body and how physical experiences of one's body are sometimes suppressed to basically abide by what we're expected in the world. That's been a major struggle for me. And it's, as I read about a little bit about, I love to read about the studies and I always bring them up. And of course, we see from longitudinal studies and from NEDA, which is the National Association of Eating Disorders, and that things start at a very early age, right? A little girl's perception or a little boy, the way we see ourselves develops around the age of 3. And that scares me so much, having kids, and just kind of knowing like we have to make sure that we leave this freedom of, coming up with your own expression of what's the best for you, what's beauty, not with what we're seeing on social media and what we're seeing on television and the movies. But it's interesting as I thought about like that 3-year-old Mark, I have to bring up to you guys. I had pica. That's a childhood eating disorder. And
Yeah.
it's like, what? I know for sure that had nothing to do with appearance and
What
body.
was pica?
Pica is when you eat basically it's avoidant restrictive eating disorder. And there's also, you're eating substances that are not meant to be eaten. So it's funny because I brought this up to other friends and they're like, oh my God, I did that too. Think about, so this is what my parents tell me at least, that I used to eat like, it would be like pieces of like dirt or like the wall in India. Like it's so odd talking about this on a public platform, but it happened and here we are standing in our truth. But I think, they said I would eat like things like I'll just like pick up a thing of sand or dirt and like eat it. And it was really odd to me and a little embarrassing to hear that. But I was a baby. No one really acknowledged that or thought it was weird as a kid because you're a baby and, people are not really judging you at that point. But when I was digging into the past, I was like, wait a second, that's a childhood eating disorder. How did it start so early? Because I know for me, the actual eating stuff that was supposedly revolving around body image was the age of 16. And that's when puberty hit. And that's usually when, if you have a genetic predisposition to any sort of mental health condition, it's usually around puberty that you'll kind of see the signs or you'll see it pop up. But it had a lot to do with external validation at that point. I was going to India for Christmas, and for some reason, I had it in my head that this time when I go, they're going to say, like I look good for whatever reason that is. And I got a lot of that when I kind of, I lost some weight and was watching my food after being a person who literally ate whatever I wanted. I was like a Baskin Robbins, McDonald's, Taco Bell girl, like completely until the age of 16, which is what my parents always say. They're like, you were fine until you went to high school. This has nothing to do with that. And I was like, it doesn't. I mean, there's a lot of factors. There's nature, there's nurture. And yeah, they always say that the conditions that come up at puberty are usually some sort of mechanism, right? There's things happening in your life and you use those, basically the unhealthy coping mechanisms or whatever it may be, to kind of sort out your life at that age. But yeah, that's my little tidbit on when my issues developed on body image. And I've come a lot, come very far in that journey, but I want to hear from you. I know, you've had your own experiences when you first started in recovery. You told me that you had some issues there and they developed right away after you were trying to manage kind of the unhealthy coping mechanisms of drinking. You kind of shifted to body, and then with pregnancy you've talked a little bit about it too. So I'd love to dive into that.
Yeah, I'm shaking my head because it's definitely popping up. I'm having major, body dysmorphia. I've had that in the past. I've never been diagnosed with an eating disorder, but we've worked in behavioral health long enough to know that there are co-occurring disorders, right? Drinking, eating disorders, mental health conditions. And so I've always been a very athletic person. I grew up playing soccer. I've talked about it a couple of times before. And I was always very like muscular, like lower body, more muscular. And I just remember as you were talking about high school, like I would compare myself to other girls. And it was always the girls that like the guys had the biggest crush on. And so then I started to idolize this image of like what I should look like, which for me in my high school was like blonde, tall, skinny cheerleader. And I was none of those. And there was no way that I'd ever meet those expectations or look that certain way. And so for talking about body image and self image, I remember like getting into makeup really early. Like if I can't make myself blonde, tall, and skinny, then I'm going to try to enhance with makeup. And it wasn't even enhance, it was like caking on makeup, like diverting from maybe like not looking at my body. I remember my mom jokes about this. Like I would spend hours in the morning getting ready for high school every day and like make sure my hair was straight because my hair was naturally curly. And so that is how I would try to receive validation of like, oh my God, your hair is so pretty. It's so thick. It's so long. It's curly. Oh my God, your eyeliner, you're this, you're that. Like, and, makeup was new for us at that age. And so I'd be out getting the best cosmetics. Like, I'd make my mom spend money and go to Nordstrom, get MAC, like Christian Dior and like Armani foundation. And I'm naming all of these brand names because it was important to me because I wanted to be able to share that with other people to get validation. And so that's what we're talking about here. And then when I got into recovery, you stop the drinking and people start to pick up food as a substitution. And I was well aware of that at that time, like that I could start substituting with sugar and eating more sugar to replace, the whatever the alcohol did for me, which was distract and numb. And so I would exercise a lot. Like I would people are like, you are so disciplined, like you have such great discipline and you're so healthy and you're so into fitness. But really, I was juicing and watching my protein and my macros, how many carbs I had, fats, sugars, all of that protein, because I wanted to stay skinny. And at that time, like I wasn't playing sports. So I didn't have as much of an athletic build. So I could morph my body into skinny. And so it became that I was obsessed with like working out. So every day, without a doubt, my parents would be like, why don't you take a day off? And I'm like, you can't take a day off from the gym, you know? And I would have this same routine where I'd walk every day, like on an incline. And now it's so popular, like the 30 something, like incline walking, and it helps you lose weight faster. I was doing that at like 20 years old and I would do it all the time. And then in recovery, I would do it again. And I was like back in the exercise phobia. I don't know if it's phobia, but it's like over exercising. There's a term for it, right? In the world.
Yeah. Yeah,
I
it's
can
not
think
coming to
of
me,
it.
but yeah.
Yeah. So that's how it's like, it's definitely taken shape for me in the form of like, I wanted to be skinny and I wanted to have the perfect butt and like the perfect makeup and the hair so that like guys would give me attention. And that's just the truth. Like, I
Mhm.
needed people to tell me I was pretty because I didn't believe that I was pretty. And as I've gotten older and now have more experience in recovery under my belt, I have reverted back to like wanting to be my more natural self, but also like still feeling good about my body. Like for me, I share like fitness is my mental health. Like I have a lot of energy in my body. And when I need to move it, like I just lift weights and I work out. So I just know that my body's changing right now at 36 weeks pregnant. So like it's a lot of just giving myself grace. But I have definitely like not wanted to leave the house during these 9 months because I'm just like, I don't like the way I look. And, people will say, well, you're carrying a baby and this is the most beautiful time of your life. That doesn't change the belief system I have, that limiting belief that like in order to be accepted by society or other people, I need to look a certain way. So it's a lot of like you say reframing, like I'm reframing the way like I show up in the world now. Like I said, I'm ready to just like whip off the makeup and like the hair and all of the things that make me feel inauthentic and just show up more naturally. And a lot of it now is coming to, again, how do I want to show up for my daughter in this world? We talk a lot about Botox and fillers, and like
Mhm.
that is a huge topic of conversation now. And I feel a paradigm shift in the beauty world. Like people are starting to become more aware of like what we put on our face, what we put in our face, and how it's affecting us, going to all natural makeup, the no makeup look, which is
Mhm.
so crazy to me. Like it's more effort for me to do the no makeup look than just do a full face of makeup. And I thought about like, why is it that I do the Botox and the fillers? And of course, I haven't been able to do it since I'm pregnant. And I thought to myself, man, it's because like aging, we look at aging so negatively, and I'm just like, how do we break free from that thought process? How do you feel about
I mean, I feel the same way in regards to just the unattainable expectations. There's all these trends coming up. And, in the beginning of this podcast, there was a lot of judgment around, how we presented. And that's, I told you we were going to bring it up on a later episode because it was like, okay, we have too much makeup on. Okay. We have too little makeup on. Okay, like you don't look like yourself. I have to call out my sister. I love her to death. I love my older sister, but she was like, you don't look like yourself in this one picture, and maybe it's the Botox and maybe this. And it just got me thinking. It got me really insecure about like, okay, so I'm trying to look in a way that's approved by the world, and the world is a little bit judgmental on the fact that we're trying to get approved by the world. I'm so confused on what we're supposed to do. And so this whole mindset of how we look on our podcast has a lot to do with social media. We're putting it all out to the world on social media. And that is literally giving everyone an opinion, judgment, and it's actually really empowering and brave because our whole goal is to stand in our truth. And so if people are going to judge that the way we look or the way we are presenting, and we still, we're trying to not change too much about ourselves, that's very empowering. I think that's our goal. And it's just scary that our kids are going to, like, moving forward, this isn't going to go away. The platform that we're on, unless you literally cut off from the world these days and you're not on social media, which is, you're judged for that too. It's like there's no way that you're not going to be, people are not going to have something to say about the way you present. And if you're not, showing up in a way that shows effort, you're seen as lazy. Like, oh,
Mhm.
does she stop working out, or did she stop, or maybe she's finally stopped the Botox because she looks good but she looks old. And so these comments are coming randomly to my head right now because we hear these around us. And growing up, I think a lot, because I had the predisposition to achieve and to control, it was the perfect combination to end up the way I did. I'm a textbook individual who grew up in a little bit more, it was a more of a chaotic environment. It was enmeshed. And so whenever I heard comments about, a sibling or about a cousin or anyone, I felt like I needed to protect myself. I never want to get that kind of comment because that seems like it wouldn't feel good. And I did everything I could to avoid that. The worst part of this all is that when I did get to a very, what I thought was the desired range of weight and the way you look, there was comments around that. Like, did she
Mhm.
stop eating? Why does she look so skinny? And that just, through my therapy recently and through kind of looking back at my life, it really is like, okay, do you want to live on a daily basis trying to please others, or are you trying to feel good about yourself? And it's so hard to get to that point. It was so hard for me, but I think right now, and the reason we started this podcast around this time range is because we were both feeling like good about ourselves and where we're at, and finally gone to the point where we're not. I still definitely am looking at beautiful models online and comparing, but I think I'm at a place where I can walk into the world and feel proud of who I am and what I do, and not just the way my pictures look. Although that is, it does influence sometimes, but just to be real and honest, that's a big part of recovery for me. And I've seen it, for you. And it's really empowering to have friends that feel beautiful and you feel they're beautiful, and being surrounded by women who are just proud to be who they are. That was a big part of my journey.
Yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly about the showing up online and being open to the criticism and the feedback that we were going to get. We both talked about early on that, like, we're putting this out on the world and there are going to be haters, there are going to be lovers, and there are going to be people that, like, are like, what the F are they doing, And being okay with that, like, I'll have to be honest, I wasn't okay with that. Like, we took a pause after our first episode because I wasn't in the right headspace. First of all, I was first trimester sick all the time. But secondly, like, I was just like, I would compare myself to you and I'd be like, I can't show up like as beautiful and put together. Like, I have to be real. And I did not want to post the first couple of episodes or start the social media. You know me, I've got a love hate relationship with social media. And the problem with social media is that, sure, we have so many supporters, but like I said, we're opening ourselves up for negativity and criticism. And sometimes it comes from the people that we love. My husband's always like, just show up naturally. You look better without makeup. But, all the people in the world can tell you these things. It just doesn't resonate or matter unless you truly believe it in yourself. And as I've progressively gotten more pregnant and I've gained weight, I look at myself, and you and I laugh because I'm like, before the episode, I'm like, oh my God, my double chin, like, oh my God. And what's more important to me, showing up the real authentic TJ, putting on a show. And for me right now, we are both standing by the mission of standing in our truth. And so it's more important for us to show up authentically and own our mistakes and own that our voices are evolving on this podcast. We're changing and growing with this podcast. I mean, it's only episode 8, so I can't wait to see where this goes. But I am still culprit and victim to that post didn't get as many likes because I didn't look pretty, or that post didn't get as many likes because we talked about a topic like addiction. And so I'm still like concerned, and I still have fear of people's judgment, people like not liking me. And of course, that comes from a deep insecurity of not loving myself. And I always talk about like, oh, this phase of my recovery right now is loving myself so that I can be an open vessel for people around me. So I could show up a better friend, show up a better partner, sister, whatever that is. So this takes a lot of courage. Like this, for us to talk about this today, like, I'm looking at myself and I'm like, I look, like bigger and, like I could have added more blush here or, but what feels right is that we're opening and having an opening invitation for people to show up just the way they are too. And I am messy and there are days where I just like can't roll out of bed and I can't put myself together and I'll tell Richa like we need to cancel the podcast or like we can't record today because my goal is to energetically put out the best version of me and I don't want to fake this. Like I don't want to put on a show for anyone. And I think you feel the same way about that. Like this is the reason we did this podcast. It's not for the likes or the number of listeners. It's like if this is meant for you to hear this, you will hear this and it will resonate and you'll relate to it. If not, there's so much therapeutic value in us talking about it. And again, I know you feel the exact same way.
I absolutely do. I feel like the fact that we decided to do this, it came with the risk of judgment. It came with the risk of people watching our faces online. Maybe they're not even listening. Maybe they're looking at our faces or they are actually listening and okay with the way we're presenting. And it's a risk that we had to take. And I think the fact that we decided to do it means that today we are at the point where good enough means that we're good with the way that we are. We play the position in the world where we know that the way we show up is who we are, and we don't have to make the crowd stand up with a standing ovation. We are not doing it for the crowd. We are doing it for the people that can resonate with us, that feel that they relate to the issues we're talking about, and hopefully we ignite that little light in them to speak up, whether it be with their families, with their friends on a platform, because it is a gift that I feel like we're sharing. Like, stand in your truth, talk about issues with your family. Don't present in a way that is hard and it's not you and it takes away from the quality of your life, because we've struggled with that. And just as we always bring up the examples because the struggles are real and we know that they're not just us. Whenever we're sitting in a circle of friends, yesterday I was sitting in a circle of colleagues and we were just bringing up random stuff and it was more about recovery and family members and judgment, and you just see everyone nodding their head, and I just feel so lucky to be surrounded by that crowd, because we don't pick a crowd that is going to tell you not to speak up or that's going to tell you to suppress your feelings. And I think that's why we're best friends, because we've always encouraged the speaking up, and we weren't friends until we presented ourselves with our flaws, with our imperfections, with all of us, with our family backgrounds, with everything that can be supposedly judged by the world. That's when we became friends, when we brought that up. Yeah, I think this episode, as we're going through these episodes, it's becoming more and more powerful to me. The whole mission of all of our topics, they always come so full circle. And I wanted to bounce back to you, TJ, with how we always wrap up with, like, what are we doing to accomplish the goals you're talking about? Like, what, you're pregnant right now, you're absolutely beautiful, and your friends see that, right? It's hard for us to sometimes see that in the mirror. And when you said you popped on and you were comparing to me on our first episode, dear God, I look at that first episode and I'm like, why did I look like that? Like, she just looks so good and she looks natural. The light's on her perfectly. We're always comparing. We live in a world that compares. But tell us, share with our listeners a little bit about how you got to the place. What do you do on a daily basis to kind of fight the expectations of the world?
Yeah, that's so hard because I have stinking thinking and I'm constantly in a selfish way thinking that other people are thinking about me, right? And so the first thing I have to do is right size and reframe my thinking. Like I am doing this podcast of service. I'm doing this to hopefully shed light on some of the topics that we're doing. So just that reframe, you talk about it, is just so important for me. It's like it's not all about me anymore, right? Like there is this energy I'm putting out there for other people to heal with us, other people to stand in our truth. And like, I have to be okay with that. The other things are just like affirming that I'm going through this pregnancy for a reason and to birth a beautiful child, right? Like this is what I've always wanted. And my husband always reminds me if I complain about anything pregnancy related, he's like, well, you wanted this. And like he does it in a very joking way, but it's true. Like I have to sit back into the seat of reality and remember, like, I knew this was going to be a part of the journey. I'm uncomfortable in my body right now. Like the weight, the heat outside, like me being full all the time. Like I've got a waddle if you see me at the grocery store, and I'm just like not, I don't feel like I'm in tip top shape, but I have to remember that like this is all for a reason. And so those are some of the things I do. And like I say all the time, I still move my body. I still like experiment with, makeup and fitness in a way that feels authentic. And that's not the same every day. If that makes sense. Like some days I'm like, I am so beautiful. Like, oh my God, I have the pregnancy glow. And some days I'm not. And I just honor and give myself grace where I'm at, because every day is not going to be perfect. Every day I'm not going to feel 100%. And just knowing that and having that awareness is huge for me. And it's that acceptance that we have around that helps me like keep moving forward. Like yesterday, I felt like crap. Like I got into bed at 6 p.m. I was sweaty. I was hot. Like I didn't want to wear any makeup. I wore this big hat outside in public. And then I just got in bed and like had a cold glass of water and just turned on a TV show. And I was like, it's okay. Like, it's okay not to be okay. It's okay not to feel beautiful and pretty. Like, I'm an extroverted introvert. Like, I need that time to myself to affirm to myself that, like, I'm doing okay and I am beautiful just the way I am. So, those are some of the things that I do. What are you doing?
That is beautiful, by the way, and I try to do similar things. I've really been working on my relationship with my body. We always talk about relationships, and the one with my body has not been. I have not been the nicest. I haven't been the best friend to my body. I have, it's sad because we think about relationships with like others and how nice we are to our friends and we make them feel good and say nice things. And I really in therapy, and I did a workshop recently too. Well, it wasn't recent, it was like 2 years ago, but it had a profound effect on me because as I started looking at myself as the little girl, like we talked about in previous episodes, it brought me so much love because you have to look from an outside perspective, and you wouldn't tell your little self that you're ugly or you're stupid or you're messing up or you're not showing up right or that you're not good enough. And so that relationship building has been really top priority for me. It's very mindful. It's very hard. Sometimes you forget. Of course, you look in the mirror like, did I go out looking like that today? And you remember that. Would you say that to your best friend or would you say that to your niece? I look at my nieces and the fact that they're getting a little older and their bodies are changing and just like I'm always like, you are so beautiful, you look great, and so we have to apply that to ourselves. And so that's daily work for me. And then I haven't been always like you with the exercise, and that's good for you. I always thought I did really well with my diet and all these things, but I've been trying to have a really good relationship with exercise and do at least 20 to 30 minutes as many times as I can, like 3 or 4 times a week, just so that I'm getting the movement that's needed to feel good. So I have a very extreme personality and I have to really watch out for making it very rigorous. As you're reading my astrology right before this episode, I struggle with rigorous rules, and that's part of my process is making sure that it never gets too much, that it's at a good level, and that I'm not trying. My goal is not to achieve a certain number, a certain way I look, or a certain standard to society. The goal is to feel good at the end of the day. And so these things are pretty hard for me, and I'm sharing them because on a daily basis, the whole like self CBT that we do, like talking to ourselves and making those changes, is one of the most powerful things we can target. And the goal is to be a good role model for our friends and our kids and our families, because no one lives a fulfilling life if we're living for the outside world. And I got to read my cheesy quote that I like as I was writing yesterday to kind of think about this. Of course, the one that resonated with me was, to be yourself in a world that's constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment, and trying to get there. So Sis, this topic is just like so deep for us. I could talk about it for days, but I feel like having you to reflect on is such a gift.
Yeah, and I'm sure it'll come up again. It comes up in all of our topics, just like the approval of ourselves and the inner dialogue. And so I love that you ended with that quote. It's the perfect place for us to leave our listeners and just be nice to yourselves. And here's to our healing, here's to our rising, and we'll chat soon.
Bye.